Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Weekend Wisdom. I hope everyone had a lovely week and no one has any sore backs and shoulders. I know I make this joke every week, but I think for the dentists that are listening that have been practicing for some time, just know how true that can be. This week, I want to really focus on the question of what practice should I buy? So, when you feel ready to own a practice, we either look to start a practice or to buy a practice. So I have detailed my thoughts on starting a practice, so you can see past episodes as I have gone through that quite extensively. In addition, Mathur Dental Education offers an online program to take you through the entire process of starting a practice. But this episode is going to focus entirely on what to look for in a practice that you wish to buy. So, the next two slides are a little bit of review, but I have discussed what I would need before I decide to buy a practice. So number one, right away, I'd want to make sure that I could feel that I could add value to the office in terms of revenue. So an example would be you could add procedures that are currently being referred, or you could work with a faster pace than the existing dentist. Ultimately, you could produce more than the previous dentist. Perhaps you're buying from a dentist that has slowed down considerably. So just by you coming in and being younger and more active, you're able to add more value there. Number two, you could minimize the potential loss of the existing patient base if they already know you. So perhaps you're already working as an associate at the office, a situation in which you would not need to win over strangers. You could potentially stagger the changeover so the owner can give you your blessing to the patients directly. Continuing on, number three, you already know the staff and their good value in terms of the duties they carry out and what they're getting paid. Or you'd only need to maybe let one person go, and it could be done without much negative backlash from the other staff and the patient base. Number four, you'd want very efficient and healthy systems that are in place, and the staff execute them well. You don't see a way in which improvements to performance could be realistically improved drastically. And number five, you have the equipment evaluated and it's deemed to be in good shape, no obvious deficiencies or concerns. You want to make sure that you're not replacing expensive equipment within a short period of time if you're just investing in a practice. So, we're going to also need some more information. What are the performance metrics? I talk about this a lot. In fact, I have an entire module on it in the course program, How to Start and Run a Dental Practice. These are the metrics that can help you delve into the actual health of a practice. So if you think of yourself, a new patient comes in and they say, I have a pain, what do? You collect information by way of taking x-rays, by doing some cold testing. Basically, you use this information to help reach a diagnosis. You can also use metrics as a way to help diagnose your practice and then form a treatment plan to achieve practice success. So, and also, how long does the owner plan to stay and for how many days a week? What percentage of the revenue is from procedures that the owner does that you do not? So if the owner walks, you want to make sure that a chunk of the practice value is not walking out the door with him. So to put this in perspective, let's have a look at a pretty common case study. So Dr. Samantha is 35 years old and is 8 years removed from dental school. She's had 3 associateships, but has been with her current office for the past 5 years. Her principal owner, Dr. John, is turning 60 next year and has approached her about buying the practice from him. He's starting to slow down and wishes to retire very soon. Dr. Samantha covers most aspects of general dentistry, including fillings, extractions, root canals, although she does single canal, and some wisdom teeth removal. Dr. John has been doing the implant placement and Invisalign within the office. Dr. Samantha, it's not written here, but Dr. Samantha has some interest in that, but has not done any cases. Also, Dr. John approaches his patients with more of a full mouth view, similar to that of a prosthodontist. So he's done extensive training with Coyce and Spear. He completes on average one big prosthodontic case a month, and he's shown excellent skill with it. The practice was started by Dr. John 20 years ago from scratch. He initially started with 4 staff members, and 3 of those original staff members are still with him. Patients in the community at large have embraced the office and the team. The clinic has an excellent reputation. Within 2 years, Dr. Samantha was also generally accepted by most patients and well liked. Dr. John feels that Dr. Samantha is the right person to continue the practice. He's thinking about his long term staff members and patients and wants them in the hands of someone with similar values as himself. Dr. Samantha feels that this is what every young dentist hopes for, to start associating at a great practice and then to get the opportunity to buy it over at the right time. So let's get some details on the practice. So the practice has 5 operatories and has produced 3 million in the last 12 months. It's grown at a rate of 7% a year. So the practice is popular and each room is usually booked out every day. They are currently open 2 evenings a week and 2 Saturdays a month. Dr. John produces 1 million a month, with 500K coming from procedures that Dr. Sam does not currently do. So Dr. John is asking for 75% of production. Now, just to pause right there, this is a different formula depending on where you are practicing in the world. So where I am, usually it's about 120% of production. But I'm using the 75% production because I've seen that in many places. So this would equal 2.25 million, and he would retire right away. Otherwise, Dr. John is willing to stay on for 6 months to help with the adjustment and the transition, but he would want to earn a higher associate percentage than normal. So let's revisit those things that I would need before I buy a practice and apply it to our case study. So right away, you could add value to the office in terms of revenue. It's hard to see how Dr. Samantha is going to be able to add value here, except by opening more Saturdays and evenings. So I'm not looking down on that. But that might be a bit of a sinking feeling. The principal is responsible for 17% of the revenue, which is difficult to replace, and it may just equate to lost value. You could minimize the potential loss of the existing patient base if they already know you. So here, Dr. Samantha is in a great situation in terms of knowing the patient base and the staff. So the usual stat is that a new owner can expect to lose 30% of the patient base when taking over. But I'm not sure this would be the case in this situation if she's already there and developed a good relationship with everyone involved. So positive signs to buying a practice continued. Number three, you already know the staff and they are good value in terms of the duties they carry out and what they are getting paid. Or it could be a potentially tricky situation here. Those 3 long-term staff members may be friends with Dr. S. However, what happens if they are evaluated according to their compensation? Sorry for the typo, and deemed to not be good value. So that's a tricky situation for Dr. S. She's got a large loan to pay off and she needs to be smart. Will she need to lay off some friends of hers? She's already having to adjust to being more, instead of being a colleague relationship, to more of a boss staff member employee relationship. Now, if she has to lay some people off to make some financial decisions, this is tricky. How will the other staff and even the patients by extension feel about that? Number four, very efficient and healthy systems are in place and the staff execute them well. Could you'd want to see that you couldn't drastically improve performance here. There wasn't much detail about that given in the case study, but if there are changes that Dr. S wants to make in the systems, will she be able to get the long-term staff to buy in and change the way that they have done things for decades? 3 of those staff members are still there and have been doing things in a singular way for the last 20 years. And also, they can't help but feel that they might be experts in the office. So they might not be overly receptive to someone saying, hey, we can do things better. Let's change it. I'm not saying everyone's like this. Some people are great with adapting to change, but it's something to keep in mind here. And you have the equipment evaluated and deemed that they're in good shape. So there wasn't any detail here. You can simply get the equipment checked by an independent firm. So more details. What are the performance metrics? We talked about that a little bit before. I have a whole module on performance metrics in the program, How to Start and Run a Dental Practice Successfully. These are the metrics that help you delve into actual health of a practice, as we discussed. So example, the hygiene recall rate. So Dr. Samantha could have a look at the practice, attach one of the hygiene recall rates as one of the performance metrics, but there's many performance metrics that she can use to diagnose how healthy the practice is. Too often we just look at the revenue coming in, but there's many things that you can view to look and see how well the practice is running. If the owner walks, you want to make sure that a chunk of the value of the practice is not walking out the door with them. It seems as though 500,000 in value will disappear with the owner due to procedures Dr. Samantha cannot complete herself. So, if you're listening to this and you're in a similar situation and the owner has started to come and you love where you're practicing and you're looking at perhaps taking over that practice, you want to be able to make sure that you can replace all of your principal owner's procedures. Not even just be able to do them, but do them with the same type of skill and efficiency. Because if you end up being in a situation, not only you're taking over a new practice, but you're rushing to do continuing education to build up these skills to make it make sense financially. So I advise new owners to have the goal of trying to double the practice value within a time period. So such as the office producing 6 million within 5 years. This practice sounds as though it's going to run into space restrictions. Within the reading it we saw earlier in the previous slide, they're already filling out 5 ops, and it looks like everything's full. How are they going to be able to fit the number of patients in to be able to get to the 6 million? She may need to build up more space or have a second office, and this means more investment. So that's something to think about. Also, what is the mechanism in which she's going to be able to grow the practice like this? She would need to increase the rate of growth from its current 7% to 15% per year. How is she going to pull that off? What is the value proposition that she's going to be providing patients to be able to go there? Sometimes the practice that you'd love to own is not actually a great business decision. The reason I use this case study because I think as dentists we come out of dental school in the modern age that is, and we look for a fantastic associate position. And in the back of our mind, we say we want to find that wonderful office with that wonderful mentor who's going to take us under their wing and let us do fantastic dentistry. And when the time comes, they'll retire and we'll buy the practice for them. And now we get their fantastic practice. But this is essentially that situation. I mean, granted, Dr. Samantha could have taken upon herself to really learn Invisalign and implants, so she wasn't in that situation. But there's other factors at play here that make this maybe not a great investment. I'm not saying that you should never buy an existing office, but make sure it is a good deal for you. And that's why I'm a fan of starting your own practice. New practices that are set up right can have explosive growth rates. My practices all grow at least 25% per year, and that's years after opening. Oftentimes, people expect that kind of growth rate in the first few years as you're just setting up, but you can have that as an ongoing growth rate or per year. Dentists shy away from starting up because of the fear of failure or lack of knowledge, but there's a formula that can be followed to be successful. And that's what I'd like to cover in the course, How to Start and Run a Dental Practice Successfully. 23 modules split into 2 parts, all online. The first part, Proven Practice Startup, takes you from that initial thought of running a practice to a completed physical practice. And part 2, Flying First Year Success, takes you from that physical built out practice to the end of your first year in practice. You can have a look at this when you get time, but these are some of the aspects that we cover in the program. And if you want to watch Module 1, here is the link. I've also posted, if you're watching this on YouTube, it's also available in the description below. And that's everything for this week. I hope everyone has a wonderful weekend. If anyone has questions about anything that I discussed in this episode, feel free to give me an email at mathurdentaleducation@gmail.com. If you have a specific individual query, something to do with your specific situation that you want to discuss, you can email me and I'm happy to go through it with you. Have a wonderful weekend and all the best.